Managing Partner of EB5AN. Thank you for taking time to join us for today's webinar. Today we're speaking with an EB5 investor, Ido from Israel, who recently invested in our Bay Creek Rural EB5 Senior Loan Project. So thank you for taking some time this afternoon to join us for today's webinar interview, Ido. To start with, could you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background and experience and kind of what your interest was in pursuing EB5?
Yeah, okay, sure thing, Sam. Happy to be here. So my name is Ido. As you mentioned, I'm from Tel Aviv, Israel, 48 years old, father of 3, married, and I've been living in Israel for my entire life, excepting for a couple of periods, rather short periods of time where I was living elsewhere. And so one of those periods actually was in the US. I was an exchange student in Philly previously, so I had a bit of an earlier experience of living there. So I have an idea of what to expect. So that's pretty much the basic background.
Okay, perfect. And so, you know, having been primarily based in Israel with a little bit of time in the US over the years, what kind of made you interested in returning and pursuing green card status in the US after, you know, having been in Israel for most of your life?
Right, so it's been kind of building up to it over the years. So I've always been fond of the US, as has my family, and we've visited as tourists now and then. And also, you know, in Israel, we've all been exposed to kind of like American culture since childhood. I mean, American media, most of Israel is English-speaking country, even though it's not the primary language here. And, you know, kind of like grew up with American culture, kind of immersed in it. So, but anyway, it kind of built up to it. It's life circumstances. It's the circumstances of Israel as a country. Yeah, most people are pretty well aware of what's been going on over the last few years here. The war. And even though right now it's kind of peaceful, there are a lot of considerations to take into account. And I have young kids, as I mentioned, the oldest one being 8 years old and the youngest one being 3 years old. So I have to think of their future, and I'm trying to mitigate uncertainty and some other risk factors. And also in terms of business potential, in terms of the ability to kind of like make a living, and the quality of life and the cost of living and all of those things, they came into sync, kind of the stars aligned. And a while ago we decided that we're going to do it. We're going to try to relocate. Initially, we weren't sure that we want to be residents necessarily, but we ended up settling on this specific plan.
Got it. Okay. And as you were doing that research, were there other visa options besides EB5 that you considered? And so what were those different options, and why did you end up ultimately going with EB5?
Right. So I mean, previously, in previous years, I was working as a software engineer, employed by several large corporations, international corporations, actually American, US-based corporations, such as Facebook, currently known as Meta, and Google, and others. And some visa types were available to me had I wanted to relocate. I kind of passed on that at the time. That was around 5-6 years ago. And then once we really did decide that we want to relocate, so I took a very deep look at all the types of visas available, and it looked like I was eligible for several of them. And I was looking into an E2 path, kind of without necessarily committing to residency, just to kind of like test the waters and to see if I can set up a business in the US and get started that way. So we were looking into that, and I actually got pretty far along with that, and was working on a business plan. But then I decided I didn't want to kind of like tie in the business with the future of my family. I didn't want the family to have to leave if the business failed. I didn't want to constantly be on a path where I have to kind of prove again and again that the business is meeting some milestones without the ability to pivot, which would also limit me in the business capacity. So at the end, I decided that I should decouple those. And that's when I got to thinking about EB5.
Got it. Okay, that makes total sense. Definitely a very similar kind of thought exercise that many other clients, particularly recently, a lot from Canada, who are eligible, and it's easy to go for the E2. All right, so at that point, you'd explored E2, you decided that EB5 was going to be the better long-term fit given the flexibility, employment options, and kind of family stability.
Yeah.
What was your experience kind of once you'd made up your mind to do EB5 in terms of starting the process, looking, interviewing potential immigration attorneys? Yeah, tell us a little bit about kind of what that immigration attorney interview and selection process looked like once you decided that EB5 was going to be the best option.
All right, so yeah, as I was doing my initial research and trying to figure out how to approach EB5, I realized that, of course, an important early step in the process should be to pick an attorney who is experienced with it. And actually, since I was already in touch with some attorneys, since I had already kind of researched and tried to seek attorneys around the E2 visa application that I was exploring. So I defaulted to an attorney who was already helping me with my E2. And also I was in touch with a couple of other attorneys, and I was actually kind of like simultaneously approaching regional centers and attorneys. So each regional center is kind of like a part of the intake or onboarding experience, some of them at least. So they also involved their own attorneys or kind of like third-party attorneys in the pitch process. And then I kind of like had meetings with several of those attorneys who were kind of like introduced to me by other regional centers, not necessarily to represent me, but just to kind of like wrap my head around various types of projects and regional centers. And I kept going back to my E2 attorney, who actually doesn't specialize necessarily in a single type of visa, but in several types of visas. At some point, realizing that specific attorney, even though I liked him a lot, he didn't necessarily have a lot of experience with EB5, didn't necessarily have a lot of experience with the specific challenges that may be related to my life circumstances, to all the things that I was looking for in a project in regional center, and ended up trying to find another lawyer. So then I took a long look at the internet, and I found an association by the name of AIIA, which is kind of like an association of EB5 investors. You might be familiar with them, and they have like a very short list actually of attorneys that they recommend, something like 6. And then I also, at the time, was already in touch with 3 of the top nationwide regional centers, present company included. So I also sought the recommendations from you guys and from a couple of your competitors. And then once I got a hit, somebody that was both on the AIIA list and recommended by yourselves, which was Dennis Tristani. So that's when I kind of honed in on him and his firm.
Got it. And what, once you'd kind of done your homework and interviewed a few potential attorneys, what about Dennis kind of pushed you over the edge and gave you the comfort that, he was going to be the right choice for helping you with your application?
Okay, so that's a good question, and it breaks down into a few things. First, I wanted to know that that the lawyer that I would be working with is familiar with the entire landscape of regional centers and the types of projects that exist in this market, and also the types of risks involved, the kind of intricacies related to the reform that happened several years ago and post-reform, and all the questions I had gathered throughout my research. And I quickly saw that Dennis is familiar with all of it, not just the theory of it, but actually the practice of it. He has a lot of relevant experience, and also not only has the knowledge, but also can suggest kind of like solutions to the problems that I was foreseeing. I mean, I just wanted to make sure that some edge cases were addressed, and I tend to be a bit more thorough and careful than I think most other people that I know, at least. So I, along with my brother, by the way, we undertook this process together. He's also, a petitioner, will be shortly. He's lagging a bit behind me. So we thought of a lot of kind of like edge cases that we wanted to make sure that were addressed and were that we prepare for those, because it's quite a bit of money, right? Especially if you multiply by 2. So then we were confident. He looked like he knew what he was doing, and not overconfident either, which is something we don't like. I mean, he was, his heart and his mouth were, on par with each other. I don't know if I'm translating this idiom correctly. So that's when we decided to engage his services.
Got it. And once you had decided that, tell us a little bit about just what that source of funds documentation process looked like. How long did it take? I know, for you and your brother, there's quite a bit of translation involved. Just tell us a little bit about kind of what that experience was like. Was it longer than you thought, shorter, more complicated, less complicated? Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, the source of funds thing, I quickly realized early on that it was the crux of the whole thing, and that had to be done right. And I had a lot of questions surrounding that, because in Israel we have kind of we have a law that says that you have to keep records of everything 7 years, going back 7 years, and that applies to everybody, to me, to my bank, and to other relevant institutions. So I knew that I can only confidently say that I can obtain documents going 7 years back. And I was a bit wary of that, because I read everywhere that the USCIS like to go as far back as they want to, indefinitely. And then if I can't provide documents to accommodate their request, so that can be construed as non-compliance. So I wanted to make sure that we can actually prepare it and be compliant and have everything ready, and not reach a point in the process where we can't provide something that we require to. So then they gave me a very thorough list. I mean, Tristani's firm gave me a very thorough list of the documents that should be prepared, tailored to my specific set of circumstances. And then I set out to prepare those and obtain those from the various sources. Some of them, actually, I was able to obtain some older documents, and in my case, some of them going back as far as 16, 17 years back. And I couldn't obtain everything, but enough to present a very clear source of funds path tracing and kind of cross-reference everything with at least 2 different supporting types of documents. And then I set about having those translated. Some of those were in English, most of them were in Hebrew. I ended up translating many of them myself. And actually, just right around the time when I was actually coming to the end of this daunting task, so Gemini got really good at translating documents, kind of end-to-end, just provide the scanned PDF and it'll translate it pretty well. But most of the work I did back when it was earlier versions of all the big AI language models, which did a terrible job at that. And also some translators that I tried also did a pretty bad job. So I wanted to make sure that I get it right, so I did it myself for the most part. So that was that. Once all of that was completed, they reviewed it very thoroughly, and then actually gave me feedback, and they found a couple of typos, and especially numbers that were kind of like pasted, and I forgot to update them, which surprised me because it was much, but they reviewed it very well, and they found a couple of important errors, which I then corrected, which is when we went back to you guys.
Got it. So in summary, how long would you say from engaging with the attorney and then, application, reviewed and ready to go?
I'd say it was around 2 to 3 months. We had a couple of holidays both here and over there. So yeah, 2 to 3 months.
Okay, got it. All right, so having just completed that source of funds process with the attorney yourself, and I know your brother is almost finished with his process as well, what are some kind of summary pieces of advice you'd have for someone else considering EB5 today in terms of selecting an attorney? Like, what are the couple main things that an investor should really look out for and focus on when picking an attorney to help with their EB5 application?
Right. So I'd say a couple of things, a couple of advices that I would give right now to whoever asks me. So first, I'd say it has to be somebody who has ideally kind of like a nationwide experience and is not necessarily strictly dealing with a specific region of the country. I think that gives important perspective. Also, somebody, of course, that has a lot of experience with many cases, particularly post-reform. I think the reform was in 2022. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that's important to have somebody who dealt with a lot of cases since then. And ideally also somebody that at least some of those cases were Israelis, and also at least has pre-existing relationship with a regional center with which that person would want to work. I think that's important. Wouldn't want the attorney to be working with the regional center for the first time when dealing with my case.
That makes total sense. Okay, perfect. All right, so shifting gears now over to the regional center and project investment side of things. I guess first let's talk about regional centers in general, and then we can dive into kind of specific projects. So first at the regional center level, tell us a little bit about what your research process looked like, and what was important to you as you started to interview and talk with different regional centers, differences that you saw, and kind of things that were important and stood out to you.
Yeah. All right. So first off, I was aware that there is another option for EB5 that does not involve regional centers. And initially, I wanted to explore that as well. So I was looking into whether I should even use a regional center or not, or opt for, how is it called, direct investment. Is that the correct term?
Yes, exactly.
Right. So then I was looking into that because I am currently in the process of setting up a business. as you may have already realized, because I was looking into the E2 visa, and currently I'm setting up a site for my new business in the EU, but eventually I also want to establish one in the US. So I was looking into that, and maybe I would be able to invest in my own business and then somehow count that as a direct investor. Very quickly, I realized after consulting with a few relevant people and also a couple of attorneys that this is a bad idea and is inferior to the regional center path in almost every perceivable way. And again, as I said previously, I had looked at E2, and then I decided that I do not want to couple my business success or failure with my relocation prospects, because we decided to relocate regardless of what happens professionally. So then kind of that option went off the table. Then once deciding that I want to work with the regional center, I had a misconception that I have to necessarily select a project that was in Florida, which is the place that I have my eyes set on in terms of where I would like to relocate to. And therefore, I looked at regional centers which are in Florida. And then I got in touch with a few of those and looked at a few of the projects which are in Florida. And actually, I was even in touch with a couple of regional centers that were not in Florida, but their projects were. But they were like local to another state, some odd options. And then I did not like any of those options, neither the projects nor the regional centers. I can give a couple of examples, but without naming them. But generally speaking, I felt that something was off. It was kind of like a small-time regional centers, small-time projects where there was only like a handful of investors. And I felt that this type of thing is quite risky. And that's why when I started to use the AI engines, just to do a bit more thorough research, without kind of like narrowing down as I had previously done, I said, okay, not necessarily Florida, not necessarily a Florida-based regional center, nor a project. And then I just kind of asked them what's out there. And then I discovered that there are several nationwide, kind of like cross-state regional centers, and three kind of stood out as the leaders, regardless of whether I was asking Gemini about it or ChatGPT or I don't remember, it was either Claude or Grok. So it became clear that there are kind of like three market leaders, yourselves being one of them. And actually, if I remember correctly, the top option, at least in one of the engines. So then I reached out in parallel to the three of you. And I started a dialogue, and I said, look, I favor Florida because that's a state where I see myself living. And also I believe that it's a very popular destination right now, both for businesses and for new residents. So I think projects there will do well, generally speaking. So I said, okay, but that's not a hard requirement. And I have some other preferences as well. And then we had a very nice, very thorough dialogue with both yourselves, Keith, specifically. Wait, excuse me one second. Okay, I'll get there. So anyway, and a couple of others, a couple of competitors. And then pretty soon, my brother and I began to feel very confident with you guys compared to the other two. It became clear almost immediately that we're going to work with you. And I'll try to recount why that is. So I would say one important factor was that we felt that you're being honest with us. You, from day one, you weren't trying to kind of like handle us or talk down to us. You realized that we did quite a thorough way. We researched EB5 generally, and we researched a lot of the surrounding aspects of it. And we went around the block a couple of times before getting over to you. So you realized that. And then we felt that you were being honest with us. We felt that you knew what you were talking about. And also, one more very important thing to us is that we felt that you had a very well-rounded portfolio of projects, as opposed to some of your competitors, even the notable ones, which seem to favor kind of like an approach where they have much fewer projects and some of them very, very niche types of projects, which we don't necessarily feel comfortable with. So they didn't seem to be suited to our kind of like a sweet spot as investors.
Got it. Got it. In terms of you know, just information availability, transparency about underlying projects, what were some of the differences that you saw, you know, as you kind of advanced conversations and, you know, really looked at some of the different projects?
Right. So yes, as you say, these are all kind of aspects in which you excel compared to your competitors. Transparency, even just like without even speaking with you guys, we went on your website, we saw a list of projects. Each one of the projects had a lot of detail to it that was openly available. No NDAs or anything. We had previously signed a couple of NDAs for some of the other regional centers that we were in touch with, just for basic information. We saw the details, we saw the transparency, we saw that you have nice portfolio where you have several different types of projects in different locations around the country. And then once we started the dialogue with you, so we saw that you very freely provide us with answers, provide us with information that we need. Everything was readily available. We weren't told to, you know, wait for a few more months because there's another project around the corner. No, everything was at hand. Everything was available. And we felt that it was up to us, that the ball's in our court, that we can move forward at our leisure. And we have somebody on the other side which is ready to go, which was important to us, and was not necessarily the case with the other regional centers that we were in touch with or had been in touch with.
Got it. Okay, that's really helpful. All right, let's talk a little bit about projects. So, you know, having done a lot of research into the program, I'm sure you spent a significant amount of time also probably with the immigration attorney talking about urban or high unemployment projects versus rural projects, you know, yes, projects in Florida, projects in other states. Tell us a little bit about kind of what your framework looked like as you were considering, you know, different projects, and, you know, why you ended up specifically focusing in on the Bay Creek project.
Okay, so let me break it down. So we had a few considerations, we had a few preferences, and we had a few apprehensions that we were trying to balance out. So one of our, I'll start with the kind of like the apprehensions, the things that we were kind of like worried about, the things that we wanted to mitigate and protect against. So we wanted, first of all, to be sure that job creation is the kind of, you know, like the requirements set out by the USCIS are met. And we like the fact that many of your projects have already been kind of cleared. I want to make sure I'm using the correct terminology here. They already have, what is it, I-956F approval? Is that the right one?
Yes, exactly. So that's just the government's pre-approval of the project.
Right. So that put our mind at ease regarding, and even the ones that weren't. So we looked at the material and we were very quickly assured that also in terms of which developers it is that you're working with, also in the way that you built the legal engagements with the developers, we were we got under the impression that we can rest assured and be confident that the requirements will be met, and in many of the projects already have been met. So that was one thing that was very important to us. Another thing that was important to us was that we would have kind of good faith partner in you guys for an eventuality where our initial request would be rejected, because as I previously mentioned, we were worried about not being able to provide all documents required by the USCIS, and then to kind of be labeled as non-compliant or something along those lines, and wanted to make sure that if and when such a thing happens, we would be able to, or at least you would make a good faith attempt to refund our money before the loan matures. So we were assured of that as well. Then we were also apprehensive about the risk of what is that, not redistribution, what's the word I'm looking for? Redeployment. So then, but that was before we started considering rural. So I think in rural that doesn't happen very often. But we were worried about redeployment, so we wanted to know how you guys handle that. And we liked the answers that we received from you, better than we liked the answers that we received from some other regional centers. So we knew early on that we wanted a TEA project for several reasons, but we never gave serious consideration to rural projects until you actually suggested those. But then we really liked the shortened timeline for processing. And then personally for me, since I've really been at it for a while, and my family has been at it for a while, and the E2 and all the other steps that we went through before getting to where we are now. So we really did feel that we would like to expedite things. And then once we realized that rural is available, and once we understood the differences, and once we were also assured that rural, that we could find a project where the developer was a serious developer, and the prospect seemed not so risky, because rural, it sounds risky at first, right? Sounds really risky. But then once we found a project to our liking, so we said, okay, we have to go with rural, because we really do want to get the green card as soon as we can. That's when we landed on Bay Creek. One more thing that we liked about Bay Creek is that it's a residential project, because a lot of the other projects, we felt that if you're investing in a commercial project, so you have to be somewhat familiar with other aspects of the business with which we're not necessarily familiar. And residential is something that we believe is safer in terms of demand, especially right now when so many people are kind of like on the move within the US. So they're seeking high quality housing and high quality projects. And we like the developer. We like the guarantees offered by yourselves and the developer. So a lot of things fell into place with this project. Got
it. We talked about rural versus urban, about some of the job creation. In terms of the financial safety itself, the residential aspect, every project, right, obviously has to be financially successful to be able to repay investor funds that have been loaned in. What about Bay Creek, with the kind of flexible building and selling, aspect of it? How did that kind of factor into the project, feeling safer than some of the other projects you looked at?
So yes, we like the fact that the project is already ongoing. I mean, it's not a project that's only kind of like hitting the ground right now. We liked the fact that many other investors had already joined before us. We liked the location. We took a look at the market, the real estate market in that region, and to tell you the truth, we looked at so many projects, so I don't even remember all the specifics right now, but we did it very thoroughly. We had Excel spreadsheets where we were comparing the different aspects of it. And as I said, a lot of things fell into place, so much so that when the source of funds check took longer than anticipated, and then at some point it looked like it was going to be sold out. So as you know, I really leaned into it, and we managed to actually get in, even though it was kind of like at the last moment.
Got it. And during the research process for the projects, earlier you mentioned how you leveraged some of the different AI tools and models. Was that helpful in terms of analyzing the bakery project or some of the other projects you looked at, or analyzing the market around there? Like how helpful were those tools in terms of project selection, let's say?
Yes, so of course, yes, it was very useful when analyzing the market. Once we had everything summarized in kind of our own spreadsheets, so we also had, I think it was Gemini. At some point we were using mainly Gemini because it just got very good at those kinds of things. We got Gemini to kind of take a look at that sheet and also enrich it with some other pertinent information that we wanted to have, research the real estate market and the kind of demand that the various regions were seeing, and also specifically, yes, for the legal documents, we were also using AI to kind of summarize or seek some specific answers that we wanted to dig out of them, just to try to assess the exposure. So yes, it did come in handy. But as I said, actually, it's funny, but initially, as recently as maybe 1 year ago, those tools were pretty useless, at least for these kinds of tasks. That was my personal experience, and then it really improved as we were looking into these things. And recently it became very, very proficient at them. I mean, the last version of Gemini, for example, came in very useful, but by that time, most of the work had been done.
Got it. Okay. So kind of looking back to summarize a bit, in terms of the EB5AN kind of interaction and experience, what was it like working with our team, working with Keith initially, with me, and I'm sure you interacted with one or two other members of our team. Yeah, just what kind of set that experience apart from some of the other interactions that you had, and yeah, how did that kind of meet or exceed your expectations as an investor?
Right. So basically, I would say it exceeded my expectations almost immediately as we hit the ground and we had that first meeting with Keith. After, I think, once I reached out to you guys, so you were the one who responded initially. I liked, you provided a lot of information, kind of like front-loaded the whole process by providing a lot of information up front, and then you set up the meeting with Keith for me. And then once that was done, so it was the first time when I interacted with the regional center when I didn't feel that I'm interacting with a salesperson. And Keith wasn't trying to sell me, wasn't trying to pitch me, wasn't trying to kind of close me. I felt that I'm dealing with a professional who kind of wants to work alongside me to make sure that I'm getting the best answers and the best solution to what I was seeking. I felt no pressure. I felt no push in one particular direction in terms of specific project or a specific type of project. And that was very reassuring, I must say. And then ever since then as well, that attitude has persisted, and I didn't look back, so to speak.
Got it. Okay, so now, kind of looking back at the tail end of the process, what are a couple kind of main pieces of information, advice would you have for other investors, considering doing EB5, let's say in early 2026?
Right. So first off, I like to tell people to be wary of the timeline, because now I'm not sure I'm using the correct terminology, but something pretty bad is going to happen in September of 26. If memory serves, something called the grandfathering clause or the grandfathering protection is going to expire, and then that's not. Or sorry, is that the grandfathering, or is that the regional center clause? Something is going to expire September of 26, something else is going to expire in 27, right? And one of those is the regional center program, and the other is the grandfathering clause. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, that's right. The grandfathering in September 2026. So that's kind of the immediate, upcoming event that investors need to be aware of.
So whoever kind of discovers that I'm in the process of applying for EB5 and asks me whether or not and how and when they should approach it, so I generally tell them to kind of put a rush on it, because the window may be kind of like not exactly closing, but things are about to change in an unpredictable way. So that's one thing that I like to say to people who are asking me. But of course, in terms of selection of regional center, so I share my findings. In terms of selection of a lawyer, I also share my findings. In terms of considerations, so I share why I went rural and why I went TA, and what types of things I look at when I try to assess a project. So the first of those being who is the developer, and secondly, what kind of guarantees there are. But of course, it's not, the guarantee is not exactly the right word, right? Because it has to be at risk by definition. But what kind of risk mitigation programs are available for that project and with that regional center? And in terms of source of funds, I mean, I can't say that I'm an expert, because everything that I've researched is tailored to my own source of funds, right? So that can be very different for a different person. And of course, EB5, I mean, one big difference that sets it apart from E2, for example, which is the previous visa I was looking at, is that it's an immigrant visa, right? So you're on a path to citizenship, and you're on a path to residency, and you're not kind of losing time, because if you are a non-immigrant and then at some point you decide to become an immigrant, so that's a non-trivial endeavor. And then only once you do convert, if you do, so only then the clock starts ticking in terms of how soon you can be eligible for citizenship, and that's measured in many years, right? As we know, and we would like to have at least the option of becoming citizens eventually if we already do relocate. So that's an immigration intent. So it's good to have an immigrant visa rather than a non-immigrant visa. That's pretty much the outline of the advice that I would give a person who is seeking my advice.
Got it. And amongst your kind of peer group, friend group, have other people done EB5 or considered EB5, or would you say you're kind of one of the first to really?
I would say that I'm kind of a trailblazer, right? So I have a couple of other friends and neighbors and acquaintances who are kind of like in an early stage of considering EB5 or something similar to EB5. Some of them are toying with ideas of, non-immigrant visas or other paths. But I am urging those people to really make those decisions on a short time frame, because as I said, and as I say to them, the EB5 option is going to undergo some unpredictable changes soon, and better to, if you are interested, better to do it sooner rather than later.
Got it. All right. So, in summary, would you recommend your immigration attorney, Dennis Tristani, and EB5AN to other foreign investors considering EB5, and why?
Right. So yes, I would definitely on both counts. I believe I've already provided most of the answers as to why. But just to summarize, so I would say both Dennis and yourselves, and also having a pre-existing relationship with each other, which is also a benefit in my, from my point of view, because you know how to get things done with each other on a short time frame, and you've done it before. So each one of you is a professional, also trustworthy entity, as far as I was able to assess, and I went about it pretty thoroughly, I believe. So yes, I would recommend it, and I believe that also in terms of volume and your ability to kind of onboard many investors on expedited time frame, I think you're set up for it, and you're one of the only regional centers I've been able to glean who are set up for working with multiple projects in multiple states at the same time, and onboard dozens of investors. I don't know, like if I had to guess, dozens of investors like per month or something, that order of magnitude. You're not small timers. Your way around the whole process, and that's important, especially in light of what I said, the September deadline and next year's deadline. You're all set to go. You can hit the ground running with them, and also you have a nice, well-rounded variety of projects that I believe most people will find something to their liking within your portfolio at any given moment. Also, even though I believe that you are pretty busy currently, because I believe currently a lot of people are going for EB5 at the current period of time, so you're very responsive, very agile, and that's not something I can take for granted, because a lot of others, they just disappear at times for weeks on end. So that's not something that I encountered. For all those reasons, and probably a couple of others that I'm forgetting, I would definitely go ahead with that endorsement.
Great. Thank you very much, Ido. I greatly personally appreciate those comments, and yeah, it's always good to hear that that you had a great experience doing the research and getting the information you needed. We really emphasize the portfolio approach, and there's no one size fits all project for clients. We've got clients from 70 plus countries, and yeah, so we have to cater toward different just different preferences: shorter period, longer period, higher return, lower return, faster green card, already in the US. there's a lot of different factors that go into, deciding what's the best fit for a particular client. So that's kind of why we've got the portfolio, the variety, with 7 projects open, just so an investor can kind of optimize, for what's the best fit for them. So thank you again for taking some time this afternoon to join us, and yeah, we really appreciate it.
Likewise, thank you very much. Happy to do it and happy to be working with you guys.